What else? The chat function. Oh, there we go. We're live streaming. See, she's a master. I told you guys, she can figure it all out. The chat function will also be open. So we sort of discourage action committee members from utilizing the chat because we don't want you to get distracted from the meeting at hand, but we do encourage our community participants to utilize the chat to add to the conversation, to ask a question, and then we'll help Brad facilitate that and bring it into the meeting. What else? And so we just ask for you to silence your cell phones and of course minimize distractions outside of this meeting. And so just before I turn it over to Brad for the meeting, does anyone want me to walk through kind of the raise hand or chat features, or is everyone pretty familiar?
Can you go over it really quickly?
Sure. So let's see if I can do as good a job as Alexis. On the bottom of your screen, there's a button that says reactions. And I don't know what it looks like on an iPad. I'm sorry. Can't translate that, but it's like a little smiley face with a plus. And if you click on reactions, you'll see there's a lower hand, raise hand and a lower hand. There's a clapping, a laughing emoji, a thumbs up, a heart. And so you can, as you select these things, they appear on the top of your box, whether your camera is on or off. And so
I only have clapping and raised thumb. I don't have any other icons there.
do you have a raise hand button?
No.
Oh.
There
And
might be
I'm
3
gonna-
little dots next to those 2, and then if you hit those, you might see more.
Yeah, I don't see the 3 dots either.
Okay. Well,
I think I'm the odd man out. I use a Google Chromebook.
Sorry?
Okay. Well, we're enough. I can see everyone on one screen, and so it'll be easy enough for now for us to be able to. So if you want to speak, you can just
Sure.
actually physically raise your hand. Yeah, for sure. And the chat is that little chat looking box that'll pop up, and you can either chat someone individually or to everyone. And so, yeah. Okay. All good?
All good.
Awesome. I'm going to turn it over to Brad.
Okay, welcome everyone. It is 5:13. I'm going to call the Hamakua Community Development Plan Action Committee meeting to order. First, we're going to start off with the roll call. Nikki Hubbard.
Here.
Nikki's here. Carol Ignacio.
Here.
Don Kinney.
Here.
Crystal Kua. Are you on mute, Crystal? Jeff McKnight. Is Jeff not here?
No, Jeff has not signed on.
Okay. Robert Nishimoto.
Sure.
And Rhonda Pollard. Rhonda's not in, is she? No.
She's intending to come, but she might be late.
Late. Okay. All right. Next item, additions to the agenda, and we have received no requests for additions to the agenda. Announcements. Does anyone have announcements? I know that Heather did one very briefly before we started. Heather, do you want to announce that quickly?
Sure. Again,
First, Kolikoli.
yeah. As of about 3:30 this afternoon, Kolikoli Bridge on Highway 19 has been closed for vehicles over 4 tons. This is coming from the state DOT based on their safety inspections. It is an ongoing situation. So as I have more information, I'm actually going to be kind of monitoring on the side here as we meet today. If there's any information, I'll be sure to share that out as quickly as possible.
All righty, thanks, Heather. Does anyone else have any other announcements before we proceed?
I see Auntie Carol's hand up.
Carol,
Yes.
you have an announcement?
Nope. That if the meetings are at this time, I can attend.
Okay. Okay, great. Anybody else? If not, we do, the next item is the public comment on agenda items. Written testimony was accepted via email and in person at the Gila and Kona Planning Department up to 2 days prior to the meeting. In addition, members of the public were able to register to provide oral testimony on the agenda items. We have currently, let's see, how many? Okay, going 3 or 4. We have presentations. I think just Daniel, right, was gonna testify.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, so Daniel, if you're okay, my preference is that, since we don't have too many folks testifying, I'll have you testify during or after the presentation. That I think Sydney and Darren and I think another party might be presenting briefly on that project, and I think that's what you wanted to speak to, right?
Yeah, that would be correct.
Okay, so are you okay with that, Daniel?
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay, great. With that being said, let's move to the next item, which is approval of the minutes. And we were provided the draft minutes for the July 1st, 2021 and the August 12th, 2021 meetings. So I need a motion to accept and second the minutes of, first of all, the July 1st, 2021 meeting. Anyone?
There's a motion by Crystal. We just need a second.
Second.
Okay, it's been motion by whom? Who was that?
Crystal.
Crystal, and second by
Keeney.
Ton. Do we need to just vote or do we need the discussion? Can we just vote?
You can open it for discussion, and if there's no discussion, then you can just call to vote.
Okay. Okay, is there any discussion on the meeting minutes, the draft meeting minutes for July 1st? If not, all those in favor of accepting the July 1st, 2021 meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, it's been motioned and second for approval, July 1st, 2021 meeting minutes. And I need a motion to accept and second for the August 12th meeting minutes.
I make a motion to accept.
Okay, motion by Nikki. Do we have a second? Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Rhonda's second that. Do we have any discussion on the meeting minutes for August 12th? Nope. Okay, so all those in favor of accepting the draft August 12th, 2021 meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so that meeting minutes for August 12th, 2020 have been accepted. The next item of business is update on the Shoreline Setback project. And I believe that Keiko will be providing a brief update on that.
Thanks, Brad. Just a very quick update by request of Action Committee members. I know that Bob, in particular, you were interested in updates around the Shoreline Setback project. So contracts have been signed with UH and Tetra Tech. And so UH will do the data collection and analysis, and Tetra Tech will synthesize the information and develop some revised setbacks. So UH is currently in the process of flying the coastline areas. And so there's 2 case study areas. One is in Kona, I believe, from town, from Kailua to Kealakekua. I could be wrong about the Kealakekua mark. And then in Hamakua, we go from town, from the bridge, we go to Pepe'ekeo. And so it also includes Honolulu River, so that we can look at riparian setbacks as well. And so these are the case study areas. And then we're hoping that that will transform into island-wide. So the next steps are going to be after the collection of the images and LiDAR and all of that they're collecting now. They'll do data analysis. And then what we're anticipating is public hearings for summer of 2023. So once UH does their analysis, then it goes to Tetra Tech. And so once Tetra Tech has their hands on it, it'll be during that process that there's going to be time for public participation in that. So just a short update, but if you're interested in more details, I can point you to the people in our office who are working on that. So just don't hesitate to reach out.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions? Nope. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Keiko. I had to tend to my dad, so sorry. Okay, the next item is the presentation by Dennis Fleming of the Hāmākua Institute. And Dennis is Executive Director of the Hāmākua Institute, and he'll be providing an overview of the recent analysis of the island's agricultural market system and describe efforts being taken to develop more opportunities for Hamakua farmers. And he will be outlining what the Institute is doing to support public and private collaboration for agricultural development on the island, and explaining the Institute's model for facilitating collective action and how that can apply to the Hamakua CDP. So with that, Dennis.
Thank you, Brad. And thanks everyone for having me. I have a few slides to share with you to take you through a few things about the study that we covered, and just wanted to see if everyone can see the screen all right. Can everyone see it okay?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
no problem here.
Okay, so I'll just tell you a little bit about the Hāmākua Institute, what we're doing, what we're about, and then about this recent agriculture and food system study that we've been working on, and the agricultural market system of the island and how that applies to some of the agricultural opportunities here in Hamakua. And I know many of you on this call may be farmers and may have certainly much more experience than me in agriculture. I've been living here for 26 years now, but most of my agricultural development work has been overseas in other countries. But we've had a chance since we started the Institute to apply a lot of what we've been doing in other countries here in Hamakua. So I'll share a little bit about that with you. And just starting off with the what we're about, what the Hāmākua Institute does. We're mostly about sustainable rural development, but it's a lot more in the how we go about it. We're very focused on systems thinking and a systems approach to economic development, agricultural development, and also community development. And we take very participatory approaches to analysis and work with people to form partnerships and collaborative programs to address the solutions together. So we're not so much about providing services to people as much as convening and facilitating groups to work on those solutions together and to help them organize themselves in being able to do that. And so that work has led us to the Hawaii Island Agriculture Partnership, because that's really what that partnership is about. It's what's called a next generation sector partnership, a public-private partnership focused on agricultural development on this island. And as a starting point in our work with that partnership, we did an agriculture and food system study over the last about a year, looking at mapping the whole kind of agri-food system, what are the key needs and opportunities in the system, and what are the collective actions that people can take to make the system work better. And so it's kind of been a challenge to get the people. There's a lot of people that are kind of looking very closely at food systems and others that are looking at agricultural systems. And the chance to bring those crowds together and to have that discussion more collectively and collaboratively was a really useful exercise. The diagram that I'm showing you here is just a simple system map that kind of provides the Hawaii Island Ag Partnership, or HIAP, as a kind of a radar screen for us to keep track of, what elements of the system are different projects and efforts focused on, and how do we have a healthy system operating that doesn't just look at agricultural production, but what are all the value chain functions from the farm to the consumer that need to be addressed? What is the information available to all agribusinesses in terms of being able to make informed decisions, the infrastructure and services, the applicable policies and laws? We kind of touch very broadly on all of these in the system. And a lot of people are familiar with where those weaknesses were, but when we took a system-wide look at it, it was kind of more clear too where the weak links were, particularly in these value chains. And I'm not going to go into all of the recommended actions. There's too many to cover in this presentation. But if you look at the link at the bottom of the screen there, you'll see a link to a web page that not only has the recommended actions from the study, but it actually has all of the data. There's data dashboards, there's story maps, there's transcripts of stakeholder interviews, all anonymous. But everything that was put into this study is transparent and available for public view. And so all these recommendations are being now pursued by the action teams that HIAP has. And the system study ended up proving to be very timely. We have a lot of people that are interested in collective action and in collaboration around agriculture. And there's already a lot of HUIs out there that are working in different aspects of agriculture. The idea of taking this big system-wide look and looking at how we can fix that system together proved to be very timely, because the Economic Development Administration, the EDA, just came out with this Building Back Better regional challenge. It's a really big grant, $25 to $75 million. And it proved to be very timely for us to study, in the fact that what they were looking for in that grant, this whole system study, just seemed to be very well suited for. So now we're putting together a grant application that, we don't know whether we'll get it, but can actually cover everything that we have, all the recommended actions that have been put into the system study. So HIAP's action teams now, particularly with an October 19th deadline for this grant application, are full. And we're getting a lot of interest and collaboration. And so the actions are kind of focused around these three teams: of the value-added growth action team, which is focused on increasing value-added processing capacity, kind of both at the local level and at a centralized facility, most likely in Hilo. Then also looking at kind of new models of aggregation and distribution to try to get more of the production from small farms aggregated in ways where they can meet some of the bigger institutional and commercial markets. So I'm not going to go into all the details of everything that was recommended. It's all there on the website, but some key things of interest for Hamakua is any food hubs or certified kitchens. For example, I've heard recently about the kitchen in Pauilo and interest to try to upgrade that and get that back into operation. All of the kind of value-added processing, we have opportunities to include that in the grant application. So I'd encourage anyone to get in contact with me if you're focused on value-added processing and see important opportunities for your farms or for any agribusinesses in your areas. Also, agritourism, I think, is a particular important opportunity for Hamakua. There's been a lot of interest in it. A number of small farms have started to find new kind of revenue opportunities by getting into small scale farm tours that don't require a lot of infrastructure to put in place. And Hawaii Farm Trails, which is started by Kalisi Malcio in Papaico, has really been taking the lead on trying to get agritourism out there in this area and putting together farm tours of a number of different farms, so as you can take tour buses to those rather than having a lot of tourists driving to different farm sites. So those are some of the opportunities. What I've highlighted in green are ones that might be of interest within Hamakua and also coincide with a number of the community actions that are already in the CDP. So we've got all these teams and these committees within HIAP, but one of the things that we've looked at within the Institute is just the fact that even though there is this public-private partnership that's trying to be as inclusive as possible, there's still a lot of silos in this whole ag and food system and a lot of disjointed efforts that don't go as far as they could be if they weren't more collaborated and complementary to each other under like a common strategy. So we've started to structure HIAP as kind of this neutral platform where a bunch of these different agricultural groups can group together. And instead of trying to make HIAP into one big unified happy family that does everything together, they have their own groups and teams that can not only form to share projects, but they can actually share assets and contracts and business opportunities by ring fencing their assets and their activities within the HIAP structure. So HIAP is being incorporated as a 501c6 business league, which is a nonprofit and enables it to function as a legal entity, but rather a legal entity is an umbrella under which a number of fairly independent teams and projects can take place. So they've got this this special purpose vehicle to be able to use. And that's kind of what I wanted to finish off by sharing is that, this is kind of what we do. We do a lot of this overseas and we try to structure public-private partnerships. And we feel a key part of that model is having some kind of a neutral platform, these kind of spaces for people to work together that are devoid of the power dynamics that are normally in place for different types of grant funding and a lot of government functions. Like, for example, that HIAP that I mentioned as a separate entity can inform and guide the mayor's new agriculture commission, but it's not the mayor's agriculture commission. It's neutral. It's just there to kind of connect the dots for everyone working in that space and giving them new kind of vehicles and mechanisms for them to work together. And so because we are based in Hamakua, we are, offering that support to the action committee, and we are a part of this community and we want to support community development. And even though we seek funding for this kind of work in other places, we're happy to do that as a part of our contribution to the committee here. And there are various elements of these concepts which can be used and not necessarily used wholesale. But the Hamakua Institute is really here to help serve and support this committee in the work that you're doing. So I'll leave it there.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Dennis. Does anyone have Any questions for Dennis?
Brad?
Yes.
You know, for one thing, I'm very impressed with the structure that you've set up. I think there's such great potential in what you're doing. It's unfortunate that Jeff McKnight isn't here today because Jeff, of course, is the chairman of the Agriculture Committee of the Democratic Party Environmental Caucus. And we review, I'm on that committee also, but we review the various agriculture bills that get presented to legislature each year. And if there's anything that we can do to help out what your projects are, we'd of course love to do so. You know, I am curious, where is your source of funding? How has your institute been able to structure and succeed in its last couple of years here in Hamakua?
Well, it's mostly funded by my, much to my wife's disappointment, to my retirement savings, was what I used to set up the institute. And I've spent most of my career kind of working in development and always wanting to do it here. You know, sorry, I'm trying to keep my train of thought going, but yeah, I've been trying to, you know, to apply a lot of what I did for communities overseas here. And so I started the Institute with my own savings, but I did a lot of the early work since we started in 2016 overseas in the developing countries with the network of contacts that I had. And actually, since the pandemic, all my international projects stopped, and I had already started doing some work locally, but I got the chance to focus myself 100% locally now. And so most of the grants that we've got to support our work with the Ag Partnership have come from a combination of different donors that are interested in this, this public-private partnership model. And it includes Kamehameha Schools, it includes University of Hawaii, have a special foundation that have been funding this. We got some funding from Ulupono. So just a collection of different funds from different organizations that are supporting this Ag Partnership is what we've been relying on locally. So that's where the funding comes from.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome. Real quick, I'm sorry, Brad, I should have jumped in earlier just to say that both Rhonda and Jeff joined us just as we were starting to go through the minutes. So they are in the Zoom with us.
Okay. I see Nikki has her hand up. Nikki?
Hi, I have a question. Dennis, I'm looking at the website and the report looks really fun to look through. Are you guys doing any projects like where people can come on site at your property yet, or not? Is not set up yet?
It's not really set up yet. We finished our building for the Institute just in late 2019. And so we have a small office and training space, but we've had, I think, a total of 4 in-person meetings since the pandemic started. So we haven't really been developing our facilities here so much because there just hasn't been the opportunity even to know when we can start doing things here. But all we have so far is mostly an office and a meeting room that we use right now.
Okay, awesome. Okay.
Anybody else? Anyone else? Ton?
Yeah, it's Jeff. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, sorry for coming in late. Traffic jam here in New Zealand. I would like to collaborate further with you, Dennis, in regard to what Ton was speaking of. Our committee is just starting to come up with legislative priorities for the next legislative session, and perhaps you and I can chat on the phone, maybe you can send me your email and we can arrange to chat later this week.
Yes, I'd be happy to. We're all about trying to connect as many efforts. We know there's a lot of people working on things, and we just keep finding new things that that we'd love to try to connect with others. So yeah, I'd be happy to follow up and have a discussion. I think your email is already on the distribution that I can find you there. Okay.
Thank you.
Don?
Yes, just a basic question. Dennis, do you believe that there are adequate lands available for farming for all of the potential farmers who would like to try to do that? Or is there actually a problem of finding lands to devote to farming agricultural projects?
Access to land is something that a few people had mentioned during the system study. We did a lot of interviews, but it wasn't kind of people's number one. The bigger concern really was kind of labor recruitment, access to good quality labor, and being able to, to basically, it's just the economic viability of a lot of farms, the cost of inputs. Access to land was one of it, but a lot more of it had to do with the costs of inputs and the cost of operations was what we kind of heard more about than we did about access to land.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Brad, I
Go
see
ahead,
Auntie
Keiko.
Carol's hand up, and I believe that Richard had his hand up also.
Okay. Go ahead, Carol.
Hi. I guess I just have a question, maybe because of the historical remembrance. When the plantation closed in '93, whenever that was, I think one of the real interests was to develop agriculture in Hamakua. And there was a lot of money that was put into those kinds of initiatives. Land opened up where I live, below 5-acre lots and that sort of thing. And I think the question that I have is what it takes to make a living farming or with ag is really, really challenging. And I'd really like to see, down the road, what some of those plans are based on what the realities have been, on the Hamakua coast when it comes to local farmers being successful to make a living and that sort of thing. So just a comment.
Okay, thanks, Carol. Richard? Richard, you're on mute. You'll have to unmute. Richard, if you can hear me, we can't hear you. You need to unmute yourself.
I think he's working on it. Hold on one second. Maybe while he unmutes, Crystal also has her hand up.
Okay, go ahead, Crystal.
Dennis, aloha. I had a question on what are some of the goals of those action committees. Are we going to see anything sort of material that we can see, feel, touch? Or is it things like policy changes? Is it things like partnerships? Just kind of wondering what some of the goals are for some of those action committees.
The recommended actions have provided kind of the initial drafts of key kind of objectives and outcomes that we're looking for in any kind of programs or support efforts that are being planned. But the action teams themselves are kind of finalizing those the details of what they're putting towards each of those objectives. And we've just kind of rebooted our action team since the system study, And so we had our first meeting yesterday, actually, of the Value-Added Growth Action Team. And so we really want to start with what is everyone already doing? You know, it's kind of the mistake that a lot of people keep making is they see a need and they assume no one is trying to meet that need. And yet, in most cases, someone is already trying to do so. So we're trying to get those efforts out on the table in our action meetings now and start to see where the coordination and the collaboration opportunities are for either existing projects or planned projects.
Wow.
Okay, I think, Richard, are you still?
Yeah, no, I'm unmuted, and I'm if I look like I wanted to make a comment, I'm not ready to make a comment yet.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. With that being said, I think we'll move on to the next item, and that is a presentation by Lehua Village Partners, LLC. It's a proposed 40 lot subdivision in Hāmākua.
Oh, Brad,
So,
we have one more hand up from Rhonda.
Okay, go ahead, Rhonda.
Thank you. If I invite any of you to stop by our farm, Hāmākua Chocolate Company up in Ahualoa, if you'd like to see what we're doing. I know a lot of you already know, but Dennis, I would love for you to see what we're doing. So we have 1,000 cacao trees and we make chocolate. We buy beans. We pay top dollar to area cacao farmers. And we're making pure Hawaiian chocolate, and we offer farm tours. We teach people how to, thank you, Alexis. We teach farmers how to grow cacao, and then we'll buy the pods from them. We'll do all the processing for them. So we're trying to educate everyone. Some people have land and they've been trying to think of what they can plant. So we've been talking with a lot of people, even if it's just a few trees, it all adds up. And we hope to have a co-op here. And we offer the farm tours Monday through Friday. And just as of today, we're open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. People can stop by and shop. They can taste chocolate anytime, Monday through Friday. I'll type in the website, but it's Hāmākua Chocolate Co for company.com. And I'll type it into the chat. Thank you.
Thanks, Rhonda.
Brad, just
yes,
one quick comment. Dennis, the Hamakua development plan community development plan is all about agriculture. So I would like to encourage you to keep us informed of what you're doing. I think it's real important. Thank you.
Thanks, Don.
Happy to do so. And Rhonda, I have visited your farm and I recommend it to everyone.
Okay.
Brad, can I make one last comment? Sorry.
Sure.
Yeah, to Ton's comment, later on we'll be talking about the implementation updates, and Rhonda and Crystal have identified themselves as the 2 action committee members that are going to help in the ag sector. And so I encourage you to, continue this relationship with Dennis. I think the action committee is a great networking body that can, tie into some of the things that they're planning and doing, share that out with the community, and also share that with me if there's county level policy recommendations that make sense to you folks. So I think there's a real opportunity to move that particular action item forward from the action committee working with Hamakua Institute. And hopefully you're amenable to that, Dennis, as well.
I am.
Okay. Can we move on to the next topic? Okay, so I'm just going to turn that over to, I don't know who it's going to be, Sid, Darren, or Roger, or Jack.
Okay, thanks, Brad. I'll start off. Hi, I'm Sydney Fouquet, and
Darren arrives also on the Zoom. He and I are both assisting from a planning and land use perspective. The landowners, developers, Roger and Terry Meeker, and Jack Larson. Before turning it over to Roger to kind of like specifically talking about what they really want to do, I'd like to spend about 1 or 2 minutes just giving you some overall history as far as the subject property and its surrounding area. As all of you know, like, the sugar industry kind of fell down by the domino one at a time. It started out first with Kohala Sugar. Then they had the Kohala Task Force. The government did whatever they could to salvage that industry. And then we saw the fall of Hāmākua Sugar and coincidentally, at the same time, Puna Sugar. But what Puna Sugar tried to do was provide land for their employees. And that was pretty successful. A lot of the subdivision you see across the Kamehameha School, that was a result of MFAC, the former owners, providing land to the employees. Well, Hāmākua Sugar also wanted to do the same thing too. So back in 1978, Hāmākua Sugar, which was a subsidiary of TOH Davies, they came in for a massive rezoning of approximately 115 acres of land in that area where Texas Drive-In and near the Honokaa Elementary School is, in that general area, as well as lands immediately in Mauka. So they came in for a rezoning back in 1978. The assumption was that they were going to have like 400 lots between the Mauka and the Mackay side. And those lots were then going to be subdivided and conveyed to former employees of the sugar company. And at the same time, make some lands available to other private landowners in that area who had active sugarcane operation, maybe in Pauilu Mauka, Ahualoa, and those kind of stuff. So they would do the land exchange to make it more feasible for Hamakua Sugar to kind of operate by having consolidated sugarcane functions. So they did those kind of land exchange. So along the way, when the land was rezoned, the assumption was going to be one developer. So there was conditions relating to setting aside lands for affordable housing, and more critically, making the intersection improvements at the Pakalana Street and the main highway. This is like back in 1978. Over time, different parcels were sold, the lands were subdivided, and the only thing that was really ultimately fulfilled in terms of the condition was the former owner setting aside, I think it was 10 or 15 acres of land to the Hawaii Housing Authority to address the affordable housing requirement. At the same time, they also sold off 2 or 3 acres of land to the, at that time, Mr. Teixeira, who came in for the rezoning of the area that we now know as Texas Drive-In. So that was, at one point in time, part of this 115 acres that was supposed to be set aside for this, massive housing program. So now you have a few parcels remaining, and the last man standing is really like Roger and Jack, who own these parcels, and they want to subdivide their property, pursuant to the existing zoning. They were able to get the water because water is a premium in the Honokaa area. They were able to get the water by setting aside and dedicating land to the County Department of Water Supply for a new water tank. So in exchange, the Water Department provided, the required water service for these properties. All other properties in this area, you'd be pretty much limited to what you can or cannot do because of the water limitation. So we approached the county and we asked the county, look, can we get relief from this requirement? Because now it's unfair, for this last landowner to be responsible for doing what should have been done by a one developer, encompassing 115 acres of land. And so what the department recommended, he said, it's better that you downzone the property in the same way how the Texas Drive-In was rezoned. You rezone that area, and then we will independently look at the impact that that project will create, and then determine what is the appropriate requirement. So based on that kind of guideline, Jack and Roger kind of looked at that, and then they came forth with this proposal to do a much needed affordable housing program, housing project for these two areas, a total of which would be 40 lots. But to be able to effectuate that affordable housing project, the lands need to be rezoned.
So as a result, we had a meeting with Council Member Heather Kimball, and she suggested, and and wisely so, that we have an audience with the Hamakua CDP Action Committee. So we're grateful that Keiko and the rest of the crew were able to kind of squeeze us in, in terms of this agenda item. And so this is where we are. So I'd now like to kind of turn it over to Roger, who can briefly talk about what specifically their affordable housing program is all about relative to these two parcels of land. Roger.
Thank you. Can everybody hear?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thank you, Sid, our man in Italy there. And anyway, just briefly, I want to just start off with some introductions. Tell you, first, I want to thank everybody. Thanks for letting us get on the agenda last minute like this, and the opportunity to talk to you folks about our project. I want to tell you a little bit about myself and my partner Jack. I'm a recovering real estate attorney. I practiced law for a number of years, both in Honolulu and in Waimea over here after I moved to the Big Island almost 30 years ago. That's where I met my wife, Terry. She's from Hilo, born and raised. And over time, I eventually got more involved in my own real estate investment of different types. I've done, among other things, conservation easement work, including working with the Hawaii Trust for Public Lands. I've been actively involved in community groups ever since my time on Oahu, and was a former member of Life of the Land, past president of Waimea Main Street here, and I'm still president of Kapoho Beach Lots Association. Anyway, that's my partner, Jack Larson, a great friend of mine. He's been a longtime real estate broker. He first lived in Honokaa in the 1980s, started working real estate there in 1991, and purchased a home on Koa Street. He was, among other things, very instrumental in helping the county's acquisition of the Rice family property near the Waipio Valley Lookout through the public access open space program. And Jack's, you can see him there, he's part of our meeting. As for our project, as Sid alluded to, there's been a water moratorium in place in the Honokaa water district since the 90s, and what this has done is prevented the creation of badly needed housing supply in the Honokaa market, both for rental and for purchase, unless you had water commitments. Unfortunately, we have water commitments. They, as Sid mentioned, they were kind of reinstated. They'd been previously issued to the previous owner, and we were able to get those reinstated by deeding property to them. There's just a huge demand for families and workers who need, affordable, moderately priced housing options in Honokaa, the whole island, of course, but Honokaa in particular. Unfortunately, prices have risen dramatically in recent years, and we all know what's happened over the last year, where it's just gotten just crazy. To our knowledge, we're the only property in Honokaa that has water commitments, and we'd like to use those for our project here and help meet this pent-up demand and help address the affordable housing situation. Our project, I hope you have some of the materials that we were able to circulate. I hope you have maybe those in front of you. What we're proposing is...
I'm sorry, Roger, would you like us to share those on the screen while you're speaking, or do you? Okay.
That'd be great. If you could start off, well, put up the location map first, if that's okay.
Sure.
I'm not sure how this works. I think you guys all know probably where we're talking, but the map makes it pretty clear. There we go. So you can see it's both parcels are immediately are below the highway, Makai of the highway, and immediately Mauka of the park. The hospital is just below, and the schools are just below right there. So it's a great central location, right in the heart of Honokaa town. Then we have a more detailed plan of the two parcels. Here we go. And they're each 7 acres. We're proposing 20 units on each 7-acre parcel. The current zoning would allow 31 units on each parcel. So as Sid says, we want to downzone and decrease the density. So it would be 20 units on each of the 2 7-acre parcels. The excuse me, I got a couple cheat sheets here. So we're fully conforming with the general plan and the community development plan, which has the area designated for both medium and low density urban. Although the county code requires for a project to be 20% affordable product, we want to designate fully 50% of the units in our project as affordable per the Hawaii County Affordable Housing Guidelines. And this would be for all of all of Village 1. Village 1 is on your right. Lehua Village 2 is on your left on that map, on that master plan. The 20 finished home sites on Lehua Village 1 will be targeted to first-time local buyers, workforce housing, that sort of thing, to help satisfy that need. Per agreement with the county housing office, which we would enter into once this is approved, the first 7 months there's a preferential period which you have to offer it to first-time local buyers, and after that, if there's any products still available, then it can be opened up to Hawaii residents, more broadly. Lehua Village 2, which is on the left side of your map there, will be market product, and that'll be lots or homes or some combination thereof. At this point, we're not certain, but we think it's highly likely that a number of those properties will probably also, maybe the majority, will also fall within the pricing guidelines, affordable housing pricing guidelines. As Sid mentioned, we're proposing a planned unit development. You guys are probably aware that the PUD ordinance provides more flexibility in the lot layouts, topographical considerations, appropriate road design, common areas, and things like that. We have a private access road for each of the two phases, each village, and they're designed to flow best with the given topography. The roads will be 20 feet wide pavement with 10-foot grass shoulders. We also had submitted, and I don't know if you were able to circulate, Keiko, but kind of a photo that, here we go. Yeah, keep scrolling. Perfect. This gives you a pretty good comparison between a typical subdivision road on a typical subdivision on the Big Island, and then as opposed to a planned unit development road where you have a much smaller, more neighborhood-friendly road. They say a picture's 1,000 words, and it kind of highlights the differences between them and the advantages and disadvantages of each. It just creates a friendlier neighborhood. It's more pedestrian-friendly, more pet-friendly, and kids can ride their skateboards and stuff like that. But it just makes for a much nicer neighborhood, especially for a small little development like this. We want to do designated driveway locations to minimize the breaks in the roadway, and also that would be an aesthetic benefit. We want to do. You'll see at the end of each cul-de-sac is a location for a cluster mailbox site for each village, with parking spaces that comply with Postal Service guidelines. On Village 1, if you would scroll back to the middle map, the middle attachment, you may see between lots 14 and 15, there's a little pedestrian path there. And behind those lots say, 9 through 17, you can see a road, it says Lehua Street. But that road doesn't really exist. Most of you probably know that. It's just a paper road. It's never been built. It's partially a collapsed lava tube. But what it is, a big part of that is it's a nice forested area, and you can walk down this pedestrian path into that area and then go right down the road that leads to the schools and to the park. So it'd be a great way for kids to kind of have a shortcut to go to school or go to the playground, or even to horse around in that wooded area. And let's see what else. Oh, we wanted the round circles along the streets there. Those are supposed to represent, street trees that get planted. And we want to try, if we can, do like Ohia Lehua, kukui, native species and stuff like that, because over time that'll create a nice street landscape, a nice streetscape. Finally, by way of minimal CC&Rs, we would like to ensure that the homes that do get built will have an appropriate design aesthetic which references the historical Hawaiian plantation and cottage style architecture. No geodesic domes, no metal container homes and stuff like that. Just minimal guidelines, but we think it'll help make for aesthetically a much nicer neighborhood. Encourage front porches, perhaps, things like that. So we've met with housing, we've met with planning. They're both very supportive of what we want to do, and we're open for questions. Any questions or comments, whatever kind of feedback you folks might have.
Thank you, Sid and Roger. I believe we had Dennis Fuji, who was on the list for testifiers. Dennis, are you still there?
Daniel, but yes.
Daniel, excuse me.
Yeah, not a problem. So first off, I'd like to just lead off with saying, it's not like I don't support getting affordable housing and units in what Roger's doing. I think I don't speak for all of us, but I do live directly next to what would be proposed Village 1, right there next to the bridge area, adjacent to, I think in that slide, it'll be lot 20 and 19. I'm right in that corner where it's not green. And I did buy that from them as well. So the concern there is kind of, as many people in the area know, in Honoka'a know, that Lehua Street is essentially used as a bypass when, the school is in session, because as everyone knows, Pakalana Street is a one-way Monday through Friday for school. Of course, COVID has changed that, but in prior years when that was open, that street is primarily used as a back access road through town, as well as for, the park access areas, even as far as buses and things. So the concern of mine would specifically be, things like infrastructure just regarding that road, and an influx of 40 new lots and what would be done to do that. Specifically, one of the major concerns is that one-way or one-lane bridge on that corner. Again, it may not be directly related to their development per se, but it is something that we feel needs to be taken into consideration before all this goes through. It's just a concern for safety as well. Not only do we have lots of walkers and things going across that road from other adjacent communities on Pakalana to the park, but as well as just for traffic and flow traffic there. I do also want to make note I know Roger had mentioned something about the CC&Rs regarding those homes in Village 1. This is kind of more specific to my lots, but it does affect some of the Mackay side lots as well. CC&Rs for, height restrictions, view plane protections. Of course, the reason I bought that lot is because both it's adjacent to the gulch as well as the views for the ocean. So I just wanted to, voice my concern to make sure that is, upheld. It was something that I had initially gotten for the seller disclosure on my paper when we were buying the property. So I know some of my other neighbors have voiced concerns as well regarding, the new developments, of course, 2 stories or, things of that nature in that area. So just wanted to make sure that those concerns were heard and met, taken into consideration. The other thing would just be, I'm sure it's already taken to it. I know what Roger mentioned, the topographical, flow of the road and things of that nature. But with the Mackay subdivision, one of the major issues was during heavy flooding and rain, that current private road it actually did erode, and it does present a hazard for driving in that area, which already is not a safe area. So just want to make sure that mistakes of the past are not repeated and are taken care of beforehand, as opposed to preventative, as opposed to being reactive. And so that's basically my concerns concerning a new development. Again, it's not something that I oppose as far as the development goes. It's just more so making sure that it's good for both everyone in town, in the Hamakua community, but also especially people that live and will be in that Lehua village area, because that road is not necessarily prepared for an influx of 40 different lots, including the current traffic, and then looking forward to after COVID times, and when it becomes much busier especially during the school year. So yeah, that's really all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Daniel.
Brad, I'd like to step in if I may.
Go ahead, Richard.
Okay, can you pull that subdivision map back up, please? I don't know who's, yeah, okay, good. All right. Okay, if you look at one of the roads in one of the subdivisions, it's the road that's between lot 20 and 1. And this is a question, I think, for Roger. What's not on this map is the subdivision that we live in, which is Hāmākua of Lehua. And Roger, is that street going to be directly across from the street that we use now to get out onto Lehua?
On Village 1, I was looking at Village 2, I'm sorry.
It's all right. Am I making myself clear, Roger?
You are. I don't have that map next to me. Jack is, I think Jack's still with us here. Do you happen to know, Jack, how close those two are?
Offhand, I'd say the phase 1 roadway entrance onto Lehua Street will be to the Hilo side of Lehua Hāmākua Place, the upper private road, probably 50 to 75 feet towards Hilo from it.
So it'll be like Jack,
Offset,
are you saying you're saying it's
slightly?
Okay, will it be above lot 20?
I don't understand the question, Richard.
Okay, well, I'm trying to figure out. Actually, I think maybe what needs to happen here, Roger, is in the development of this subdivision, you need to include the current subdivision so that we all have a better picture of the projected development that you're proposing. And for example, if our private road that goes out onto Lehua is very close to the road going into that subdivision, we almost have a cross street here. And I have to tell you that the sighting coming off of our subdivision is not very good. And I think that's maybe something that we might want to pursue with the county.
Could I interject, Richard?
Sure, yeah.
If we could scroll up to the location map, the first map.
Okay.
I don't know if you're able to zoom in. Oh, hey, wow, great. Okay, move. Okay, perfect. So Daniel's lot. Okay, you see the gray parcel that is Village 1, right?
Point to it, right? Okay, yeah, all right.
In the lower right corner is a notch. That's Dan's lot.
That's where. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
and then if you go across the street to where Richard's at, you see those 8 or 9 lots there. You can see the entrance road to those Hāmākua parcels, and it does not intersect with the one that would be going Mackay.
Right.
I mean, they're kind of close, as Jack mentioned, but they're not. It's not like a 4-way intersection.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying, Roger, I think it's to your advantage is to show that more specifically in this development, because for those of us who live on the Mackay side, I think we're basically concerned about traffic and how that will be managed. So I think if you do another presentation, I'd be a little more detailed about that.
Okay, I appreciate the feedback.
Yeah. Now let's go back to the subdivision map, please. Yeah. Okay, now, Roger, the entrance to the Mackay side, how far is that from the one-lane bridge?
Gosh. Daniel may have a better idea than me. I would guess 200 or 300 feet, I'm guessing. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I guess
I think
what I'm saying.
Daniel's lot's about 90 or 100 feet wide. Lot 20 is a little wider than that. And then there's a certain distance to the Gulf. So I'm guessing, wild guess,
Sure.
250 feet.
Yeah, okay. Now, in the other development that's further down Lehua, the road going in and out of that place is right on a curve. And, I'm just wondering if that, road ought to be placed someplace else.
I'm saying, go ahead.
I mean, if you look at Lot 4, if you're going to have a single road going into the subdivision, it would seem to me that it ought to be down someplace where Lot 14 or 15 is, because that's a straight stretch. But you've got the entrance road there right on the corner, and I have to tell you, and I think most the people who are currently living in the subdivision, people drive very fast down Lehua. And when the Pakalani Street is closed during school, there's a lot of traffic. And of course, in the future development, at the bottom of Lehua by the skateboard park, there's going to be a new medical center. So there's going to be more traffic there too. So I'm sort of thinking that the infrastructure on Lehua has got to have some improvement. And the one-lane bridge is just a real problem.
I guess we all the rocks fall down and everything. Another thing, if I can, just pertaining to what Richard's talking about for that proposal for the road for Village 2. I know you folks probably look at that, but another concern that we would have, I know it's a ways away from where I live, but that concern is, I don't know if anyone's been there during, hard rains or, extended periods of rain. That is actually a large hillside. And the water does actually flow through that area. There's actually a culvert that goes under that road in that section.
Correct.
So, I mean, is there a reason why the road was specifically placed there as opposed to I think you guys had like a subdivision, like Richard's saying, on the other end of Lehua, probably just for, like near property 14 in Village 2?
Yeah, is it okay if I respond to these? This was vetted at great length, as you might imagine, by the engineers and by the PUD designer. There's embankments there, and you're kind of limited on where you can have an access road because you want to have adequate line of sight as you enter and exit the little subdivision, right? You want to be able to see left, you want to be able to see right. And the reason that they located on the inside of that curve with very wide radiuses, so when you come in there, you can see clearly in either direction. Now, if you push that further down Mackay, further down Lehua Street and try and punch it into 16 or 15 or
14,
you don't have the line of sight you don't meet the line of sight requirements. If you bring it all the way around to near the hospital, the lower part of that tract by lot 13, 14, you can't see on this map, but there's a part of that is within a flood zone that comes as you will look on the left side of the map.
Can you pull that map back up, please?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I forgot everybody. I have it in front of me. You guys don't. Sorry. Okay.
Also, sorry, Brad, I don't mean to interrupt, but we also have
Yeah.
Francine Roby with her hand up and Auntie Carol.
Okay, so in the interest of respecting everyone's time, I'm gonna try and keep the input to people who haven't spoken. I think you're getting some very specific things, and it's pretty clear that you're gonna need to address some of the concerns. I know that. Anyway, so let's just kind of move on, and then who else is that? Francine, and who else?
Francine and then Auntie Carol.
Okay. Go ahead, Francine.
Thank you. The can you hear me? Okay. The Hamakua community development documents have a community profile that includes some things about hazards, and I'm glad you mentioned there's a flood zone in the area. But one of the charts that's in that community profile talks about landslide susceptibility, and this whole area over here is bright orange. It's called high susceptibility. I call it screaming orange susceptibility. And that gives me concern, maybe not, I'm sure you've done engineering studies of that specific area, but the adjoining areas could contribute to the hazard of the neighborhood, which reminded me that talking to the people in Waikoloa Village after the recent fire, a lesson learned from there, not yet published, I don't know if it will be, is that cul-de-sacs are not a good idea. We're in a wildfire, hazard enhanced time, and anywhere there is history on the Hāmākua coast of wildfires. So between those three elements, I'm just wondering if you've given consideration to the fact that that's a whole lot of people that have one way out. And if there's emergencies from any one of these natural hazards to which there's high susceptibility here, people don't have a lot of ways to get all those vehicles out of a cul-de-sac. If it's blocked, if that bridge goes out, they need another way out.
Okay, is that it, Francine? Okay, thanks. Carol.
It's more of a comment than a question. At least the data I have, and I'm not really up to date, but 2019, the median income in our county was $62,000, just about $63,000, yeah. And affordable for people is like 30% of that. So I guess I'm asking the question, when you developers are looking at affordable housing, what does that mean? What price range are we talking about?
Who was speaking? I'm sorry.
Carol, Ignacio.
Oh, hey, Carol, it's still you. Okay.
Hi.
Are we fielding more questions, or so you want me to respond?
Yeah, if you could do it briefly, Roger.
We don't have fixed prices now, and Jack can talk to this more than I can. The Office of Housing has a pricing guide, affordable housing pricing guidelines. They have numbers for 80% and 100%, and what those prices are. We're going to be well under those numbers. So I don't know what percentage of income, that median income, that would work out to, but probably 60% or less. So we're trying to bring these in at a very, very attractive, very affordable pricing. We won't know for certain until we have a fixed infrastructure costs, which we don't have yet, of course, because the engineering would need to be completed. But we're very aware of the issue of affordability, and that's why we want to try and do this.
Along the same lines, Carol, if I may, Roger, you guys mentioned, like the Office of Housing and affordable 20 of those lots. Are you guys planning to actually develop it and build the houses, or are you just subdividing the land?
The village one will be finished lots. So they'll be completely finished and ready to build on. And so, because we want to be able to deliver that as soon as possible.
Mhm.
And so those will be put out to buyers that will be building their own homes. Village 2, we may build homes, we may do some lots or some combination. It's a little early in the game to know for certain what we're going to do on Village 2.
Okay, thanks. Carol, did you finish what you had to?
Well, the last question I had was, and I may have missed it. What percentage of the project are you planning to do, quote, affordable housing? How many units? Or how many plots?
50%, 20 of the 40 total lots.
50-50. Okay,
Yeah, exactly.
thank you.
I might note, I think I mentioned earlier, but the county requirement is 20%.
Okay, Ton, go ahead. And can keep it brief,
Yep,
please?
Sure. A couple of comments and then one question. First of all, I have concern about building 40 lots next to a one-lane bridge. Already there is congestion on that bridge. So I think that would be one concern. Another concern is that it seems to me like there would be no potential for parking on the couple of small roads that you're creating. I think parking is going to become a big issue for you in this situation. And then finally, I can't remember the name of the legislation, but there's a situation where one can avoid certain zoning issues and so forth if you build 50% affordable housing. But that has to go before the county council for confirmation. Is your project going to be needing confirmation by the county council?
Should I answer, Brad?
Sure.
Okay, what you're alluding to is a 201H program. That's a state program that allows you to fast track, if you like, a lot of the approvals if you're delivering affordable housing. For example, if you want to convert agricultural land, you don't have to go through the whole rezoning process if you use the 201H program. And that's just one of many examples. That's not what we're doing. We're working within the existing zoning and wanting to provide 50% of it as affordable.
I see. Thank you.
Does that answer your question, I hope?
Yes, it does.
I see Jeff has his hand up, and then
Yeah.
Heather.
Okay, Jeff, Heather, and then I'm going to wrap up after this.
I just had a quick question. I'm wondering, to what extent have you done outreach into the community to address the surrounding community to address their concerns?
Well, that's what we're starting right now. You guys are our first venue. We have a meeting scheduled with the Hāmākua Business Association in a couple of weeks. So this is the start of that process, and you're our first stop.
Planning any meeting with the residents as well that surround the development?
We have nothing scheduled. You mean just the neighbors, you mean?
Yes.
We haven't scheduled anything, and we're open to whatever is appropriate.
Thank you.
Heather?
Thank you, Brad. I just want to jump back to Ton's question. There are two processes still yet that they'll have to go through. One is that PUD planned unit development process, which has to go before the Planning Commission. It's Sydney, correct me if I'm wrong. And then because this is a rezone, it will go before council and have a review there. So I just want to, regardless, this is a great opportunity. I'm glad everybody had a chance to make comments to Roger and Jack. I want to also just credit them for coming out early. I mean, this is all months away yet, and so there's plenty of time for input. And I just want to mahalo both of them for stepping up and doing this. This is not something I've seen with other projects in other parts of the island. So just grateful that Roger and Jack made time for this today. Thanks.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I have a few comments. Can you put the map up again? Alexis or Keiko. Yeah. Okay. So I guess first of all, just sort of starting out at the macro level, Sydney has sort of kind of outlined, sort of the kind of dismal history of, transition from plantation and, all the well-intended, well-intentions, good intentions as far as providing for local affordable housing ownership. And I guess, one of the things that kind of struck me is that here we are in Hāmākua, within the town itself. And we have existing county zoning at RS10. And then this project is asking for basically an RS15, which is a larger lots. And I somewhat familiar with the area and the topography. And I know that there's relatively steep slopes, at least on the perimeters and even within the site itself, if you look at the contours. And so a lot of the lots are going to, there's the cost of housing to build, depending on what type of construction method is intended, will be, there'll be some extra cost rather than say on a flat site. So, so that to me is sort of counterintuitive in terms of if you really wanted affordable housing, then you have smaller lots because people can, developer can develop more. And then also the lots can be lowered in costs. Okay, so that's one aspect of it. So I have some questions, serious questions about that, or reservations about that. The other thing next was the other things that have already been mentioned in terms of the infrastructure surrounding and adjacent infrastructure and the context of flooding, and then also the highway right there. It is in town, so yes, we've already developing in the area. I am for infill development, and this would certainly meet that requirement. But also Francine's comments about the cul-de-sacs, again, bad design. I mean, I'm not gonna belabor it, but for higher density in town stuff, you want to have interconnectivity of roadways so that you have alternative means, and so that there's a distribution of the traffic, because there will be impacts. I'm familiar with the Lehua and that narrow winding road that leads back up and down into town. So I would, I was mentioning some of these kind of key points. Another one would be, some visual screening at the Hawaii Belt Road, just looking down on that. I know it's not that big a deal, but just so that we're not looking down on a whole bunch of roofs, which is what it's going to end up being, because that's the density that we're looking at. So it's sort of, looking at how to, promote the affordable housing things. And I'm certainly for the smaller roads. And I don't know if the county has adopted yet the roadway standards, which provide for that flexibility for narrow roads and more complete streets. So, in terms of, maybe kind of relooking at that whole the PUD aspect of it, you might want to consider more of the pocket neighborhood type stuff with looking at natural drainage ways to handle drainage, and then not disturbing a lot of the steeper slopes, because a lot of them you're not going to be able to build on it anyway. But those are some of my main comments as a landscape architect planner and person that's been involved in large scale and small scale housing development. So anyway, with that being said, if there's any additional comments that people have that can be brief, I'd like to move on to the next topic.
Yeah, I have something I'd like to say.
Okay.
My background is in utility construction, and I am concerned we already have too many wires going down our street where we can barely see what we came here to see when we moved to Hawaii. So my concern is, are the utilities going to be underground, or are we going to have a series of poles going down the street? The second thing is there going to be a height on the buildings and a height on the trees?
Yeah, so along those same lines, Jim, and Roger and Sid and Darren, basically, like I've seen too many projects with good intentions, saying that they're going to do some CCRs and kind of keep the character of architecture, so that it kind of fits the local context. And I know and have seen the lack of enforcement of it, besides poorly written CCNRs to actually, capture and enhance, kind of lead homeowners. And then when you have CCNRs, it becomes a little bit more unaffordable because of, some of the design type things that you're trying to do. So again, just as a note of caution, we'll be looking for those types of things as you move forward. But I appreciate the opportunity and you folks reaching out at this early preliminary design phase.
Could I just have a final comment, if that's okay?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of different questions were raised. I guess right now is not the time to respond to all of them. If I could, I'd like to respond to what you were saying, Brad, about the steepness. What you see is the steepness issue. I'd encourage everybody to drive over there and take a look at these two parcels. The contour lines that you see on the map, those are 2-foot contours. Those aren't 5 or 10 or 20-foot contours. The topographical issues are mostly like around the perimeter and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so, but you get on the 90% of the body of these parcels, in particular, Village 1, which will be the affordable component, is a very, very gentle slope. I mean, people are going to be able to build these lots will be prepared and build on slab. To address Dan's concern, the lots on the Mackay half of that Village 1, we would be restricting those to 1-story homes to protect the view planes, as Dan was talking about. Anyway, just like I say, you're not going to see a bunch of houses built on stilts, and the topography is not that challenging, and that's part of why the roads were designed the way they were and in the routing that they are, in order to provide people very readily buildable building sites. Anyway.
Okay. Thank you, Roger.
Sure.
Okay, moving on to the next item is the Island-wide Action Committee member initiative. So the Action Committee members will discuss and consider taking action on topics that were discussed at the August 12th joint AC, that's an all-island joint AC meeting. And the Action Committee may consider establishing investigatory subcommittees relative to specific initiatives that advance the CDP implementation, with potential to establish working groups with members of other action committees. So were we going to, Keiko and were we gonna discuss that or report back? Not in this. That's the next one, right? Next.
Yeah, I think these two are so similar, business
Yeah.
item 4 and 5, right?
Yeah.
Because you folks already have established kind of working groups, but
Yeah.
we just wanted to include the language about possibly establishing investigatory subcommittees in case there were more than 2 folks interested in working in these working groups.
Okay. If people don't mind, I'd like to sort of just jump to the next implementation updates, and if there discussion on maybe taking action on establishing investigatory subcommittees that can bring it up at that point. Does that make sense? Relative to, whatever, wherever the committee members have either made progress and would like input on reaching out to other AC committees, that would be great. So, the next item is the implementation updates from the action committee members. So, and Heather was, sort of working with the interested action committee members. So, let's see. And I believe that Francine wanted to do a brief presentation on the emergency preparedness and hazard mitigation. We'll start with that one.
Okay, thank you. Hello. So once upon a time, I did emergency planning in federal agencies, and every time there was an incident, we would take a look at what our emergency plans were, and we would rethink what we had done and decide whether there was something that needed to be improved. So when I came here, I was looking to see what the existing plans were so that I could develop my own. And then as we faced different incidents, earthquakes or volcanic eruptions or whatever, we could adjust our personal emergency plan for our house and revise them, just as the way I had learned that was an effective model to use from the work I did in federal agencies. Most of the times when you get advice to create an emergency plan, it says make a plan. And then it kind of tells you, and don't forget to include this and that, but it doesn't really give you the materials to make it a plan. And, many of you have been in business settings and you know that an emergency plan, like any other kind of business plan, has a lot of elements to it and has a lot of people to be involved, and it has some elements that need to be included from the get-go. So I haven't found kind of a model that I thought was helpful to people in households for emergency planning since I've been here. And I've been through CERT training. I've been through all of the state and county plans. I've been through every website link that's there. And I decided I just needed to create one myself. So I did the research, and I've done plans before with FEMA, and I've looked through the community development documents and the county multi-hazard documents, which are really huge, and looked at the other counties and what they're doing and put it together. So the focus of what I've come up with is for households. And I started out trying to make this a live training class because that's much more interesting, and it helps people to get to know their neighbors and to build community and capacity to respond to emergencies. But because of COVID, we can't do live workshops right now. So I did it online, and I sent people the training material, the package of the Ohana Emergency Preparedness Plan, and had them go through it with me. And we took about 90 minutes to do an online briefing. And as you know, Zoom requires some real sizzle or you're going to snooze out, and so if you're trying to get through 35 pages of an emergency document that basically is for people to fill in, and you're talking about it on screen, it wasn't going to work. So Plan 3, I turned it into a self-instructional document. And there's, real snazzy software out there that you can create self-instructional documents, and they have little knowledge checks in between that won't let you go forward until you get the right answer and all that. But they don't make them for private retired people. They make them for corporations to purchase. So I don't have access to any of that. So what I put together was a Word document, and it lets people do two things. It lets them to learn information as they're going through and thinking about the types of decisions they need to make for their own emergency plan. And this is somewhat a self-instructional process, but it's also something that can be customized for people to come to the recognition that like I do, like I've come to, oh, I'm in a single wall, tiny house that is not really affordable to create all the types of retrofitting that would ensure my house stays on the ground in a Cat 3 or 4 or 5. So it's a two-step, thing. As I said, they're learning as well as filling in the document. And I created it in 3 parts. So the first part is the emergency plan, where you take a look at sort of the traditional things for emergency preparedness, identifying your property and who your people and your pets and your farm animals and all that kind of identifying stuff, looking at your communication systems, looking at the specific hazards in your area, which is kind of what I was talking about. I've been talking to a lot of people who have been through the recent wildfires to get a better handle on updating what our knowledge bank is of wildfires, and looking at the multi-hazard mitigation plan for the county for 2020. There's some updating of that needs to happen based on some of these wildfire things that we've experienced recently. So the first part of this document that I've created is, as I said, the plan. So people go through this, they learn about the specific hazards, they examine for themselves whether their property is better to shelter in place and try to retrofit and harden and upgrade, or is this something that you need to think about for evacuation? And I've included links that will talk about CDC guidance for being in a mass care shelter during the time of COVID-19, because you're going to have less space and you're going to be exposed to more things. And there was a lot of norovirus that happened from different shelters in other emergency experiences around the country. So, all that's included in that document, as well as giving people guidance on smaller scale home preparedness, like fire extinguishers, sandbagging, plywooding your windows and things like that. But when I look to the existing documents, there's misinformation that's still up there on the Civil Defense website. There's still places where it says put a big tape X on your window, which is not recommended anymore by emergency planners or construction people, because then when the mailbox comes flying through your window in a hurricane, it takes a really big piece of glass with it to do more damage. So things like that, and other places where the recommendations still say 5 to 7 days of food supplies. We just have to get all that stuff up to date. And so that's what I've tried to do in giving people examples of emergency supplies that are recommended, giving them tools for how they would keep those rotated, and then a vital records section, which I'm not seeing in a whole lot of emergency documents. FEMA put out something called the Emergency Financial First Aid Kit, which is a fillable PDF where people can put their own documents, save them, and then have them to take with them if they have to evacuate, or make sure they're in a safe space so they're not destroyed in a major catastrophe. So these main parts, plus a whole lot of resources that are more up to date than the stuff we've got out there now, is what I did to try to make it very usable and very practical. And as I said, it's a fillable Word document, so people can customize it if they have more family members or more phone numbers to add. And we have kind of a format that I think is got enough graphics to it to make it interesting. The one in Maui, if you ever look at that, it kind of looks like it's made for kids because it's got a lot of cartoony looking stick drawings on it. So we tried to make it mature enough, but interesting enough that people would be able to just keep going through the pages step by step. I haven't finished my own yet, but I know how much more I need to do, and I know exactly what I need to still fill in. So that's the benefit of a plan, is you can check your boxes along the way as you do it. So anyway, the idea is first we start with the household, then we can take it up to the community levels and see, how is Hāmākua talking to, Pahau, and then, connect networks of communities together so that they have the capacity for thinking about emergency preparedness. Not talking about response, which would be the CERT teams and civil defense and emergency responders. I'm talking about preparing for the stage before you get to an incident happens. And I just kind of feel like we have a huge gap that needs to be filled. And if this inspires somebody with more capacity to do a better plan, go for it. If this is what we can start with, I'm thrilled that, Heather and gives us the support to think about taking it out to the community and doing it in any way we can get the information out there. So I'll take questions or comments and be happy to send it to anybody that wants it. Or I don't know, Heather, if you want to fill something else in.
I just want to mahalo you, Francine, for all the time and effort. You're a godsend with all the expertise that you bring to this. I've had a chance to look through what she's created, and it's a wonderful package. And I'm hoping that we can roll it out across not just Hamakua, but the whole county. As she said, the key to prevention is this preparedness piece. And, we start here at the household level, and then ultimately the idea is to build on that and get to the community level. So just again, Francine, thank you for all your hard work on this. It's an excellent product, and I'm just happy to support all your work.
Brad, if I could just jump in real quick too. We're so excited hearing all of this information, Francine. And so if we can play a role through our action committees, also with the GP update and connections with civil defense, my mind is going crazy now trying to think of how we can get this out into community. There's also this new program, and I'm just can't figure out how it'll connect just yet, but Hawaii County has a financial empowerment center, and it's utilizing partners around the island to provide this financial empowerment education to folks around the island. And so if we can combine these two, because we know they're very closely related. And so anyway, I'd love to touch base with you and check out the package that you've developed and see how what kind of help we can provide to move it forward. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, sorry I missed that. I may have to step out of the meeting because I have to care for my dad. Jeff or Keiko, if you guys can take over, that would be great. Nikki, as far as the Roadway Network, I did reach out to John Cross, who used to work for C. Brewer. I'm going to just kind of share what I, on the Roadway Network, because it's all related to all this emergency preparedness, and obviously with the Kole Bridge and everything else, it's sort of driving all of these things home. But anyway, I did reach out to John Cross, who used to work for C. Brewer, and he said there's quite a bit of information that the plantation has. I talked to Keiko about the information that probably is not in the hands of the county at this moment. In addition to some of those plantation roads being actually government roads, be it owned by the state or the county. And so I think there's another kind of data gathering effort that needs to be done so that we can identify some of these routes for the roadway networks, be it for resilience, emergency preparedness, and such. So I just wanted to share that before I signed off. I'll try and come back if I can, but yeah, my dad's been patiently waiting. And so I'm going to sign off now. So again, my apologies, but yeah, it's the time. Okay, thanks a lot.
Keiko, we have 6 minutes left, and I was wondering, did we want to continue our way through the agenda, or did we want to, would this be a good time to adjourn and then address the items that remain at our next meeting?
Yeah, I will leave that up to the committee. We have really, if anybody else has updates, that's kind of our last order of business, is for action committee folks to continue sharing their work. And then it's just agenda for our next meeting, which we can always reach out to you folks in our normal manner. So.
Okay, so if no one objects, I guess we'll continue through the rest of the agenda. The next update would be affordable housing, Nikki and Rhonda.
To be honest with you, Nikki, I'm not sure if you've done anything, but I don't believe we have any updates.
True, but I will share that we have probably a really good resource in one of our other action committees in Kohala. They have started making some progress and efforts, so we can connect up and then share more soon.
Okay, thank you. Next is public access and trails. I don't have that. That's Ton and myself, and we've been kind of having meetings regarding Waipio Valley and particularly the rim area and public access. And this is a very complex issue that involves residents of the valley, residents of the rim, multiple businesses. And I think really to address it in its entirety, we're going to have to put a big working group together. It also involves working with the subcommittee on roads as well. So other than that, I'll let Ton add in, and then we'll move on to the next subject. Ton? I think you're muted. Ton?
And Heather has her hand up as well.
I'm interested to hear from Heather. In other words, she's so intimately involved with the project in YPO and YPO access. I'd like her to comment on that. I've had an interest lately in the property that's immediately below Pahau. And I've had some discussions with the realtor who has access to the owner of that property. I haven't yet, the realtor has preferred that I allow his discussion with the owner to take place before I would introduce any question or comments to the community. So that's just one area. But yeah, I'd like to hear how Heather feels about pursuing the YPO access issue.
Thanks, Ton. Yeah, so there's a couple of exciting things going on with respect to YPO in general. So there's been a working group that's really a collaboration of the different nonprofits that work in the valley, including Lutero Farmers and Ha'ola OYPO, Kulia Potter's group as well. And what is exciting is, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the destination management program through HTA, but we were able to get $100,000 to facilitate a discussion with the whole surrounding community about what we want to see for the future of YPO and the management, if you will, of that destination. We're just in the process right now of selecting a vendor to provide the facilitation services. And one of the big things that came from the group in the valley was that they wanted somebody that knew all the history, but somebody that wasn't was not intimately involved in the past. So they wanted fresh eyes on the situation. And so that's what we've been searching for, is the right fit for that particular thing. The other thing, and I gave Carol a call about this yesterday, it's moving super fast, maybe a little bit faster even than I'm comfortable with, but we potentially have an investor for Jack Wayne Hall, which that's the building headed out towards YPO from Honoka'a town. This investor is willing to collaborate with those nonprofits that I mentioned before to make that an education gateway to go to the valley. And so they would expand the parking, potentially provide shuttles going out to the lookout so that we don't have as much traffic going down there, education services. Ultimately, when we get a permitting system in place, which is the ultimate goal, that's where they'd go pick it up and they'd talk to somebody who say, hey, do you know how to drive a 4-wheel drive car? Do you know you can't go anywhere down in the valley because it's all private property except the beach? So this is very exciting. Like I said, it's moving very fast. Nothing is done yet, and that's it's going to be in escrow like tomorrow, and the guy has like 2 weeks to back out. So if you have comments or questions or feedback, get them to me now. There's not a lot of time to waste on this. So that's a couple of things that I've been working on with respect to YPO specifically, and the working group there. I will also add that I was selected as one of 20 state county officials across the country to participate in the Smart Growth America Complete Streets program. Thank you to the planning department folks for helping me get the application in. Very excited to be part of that program, but talking about what Brad was talking about earlier about designing the right multi-use roadways within our communities is a super important issue for me, and I'm really glad to get this training so I have a little bit more expertise around that.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Carol?
Yeah, I just have, it's not a question, just a comment. I had an opportunity to speak with Michelle, who is the president of the Business Association, and she didn't know anything about it. I'm talking about the the ILW hall. So I just want to encourage Heather that they need to connect, sooner than later.
Yeah, thank you, Carol. Yeah, I spoke to Sarah today or yesterday, but I didn't connect directly with Michelle. I'll give her a call too and make sure she has Lee's number, but thank you. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to mention, if it's okay, Rhonda and Nikki, maybe one of the things we could consider doing for the agenda around affordable housing is actually to bring somebody from the county housing office in to talk a little bit about some of the types of programs that are available. I know that I'm not sure who it was that mentioned 201H. We should probably all know about that and how that works. I have some concerns, but we should all at least know about it. So if that's something of interest, maybe we can work with planning to set something up as a presentation at some point down the road.
Thank you. Any other questions in regard to YPO Valley, trails, public access? Okay. Next is solid waste and recycling. And we just started, Francine and I haven't really been able to work very much on that. But one thing I can say is that I received several calls over the past 2 weeks from residents on the east side, very concerned that the transfer stations were suddenly being closed. Now I know that temporarily that's been resolved, but I think that that's a long-term issue that definitely needs to be addressed. And Heather, I guess I'll ask you who we should contact to start getting that research done and making sure that this doesn't happen again, because I just don't think that we can afford to have the transfer stations, since they're only open a few days a week, have them entirely closed down for any length of time.
Yeah, happy to put you in contact with the solid waste division folks at that county to talk more about that. And I'm sure you're connected with Zero Waste Hawaii and some of those to talk about maybe the recycling end a little bit too. But yeah, I'll connect you too, for sure.
Okay, thanks. Francine, do you have anything to add to that?
No, just that when the transfer stations close, the likelihood of the illegal dumping up in our area in Nahualoa increases. So it's important.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, next subject is Roadway Network. I know that Brad addressed that somewhat. Nicolette, do you have anything to add? No. Okay. It's like the last, agriculture, Crystal and Rhonda.
When Nikki was on this earlier, we had trouble connecting. So maybe Rhonda and I need to connect in some way. But for me, it was helpful seeing Dennis's presentation. I think that's some good reading on our part. I do agree with him about wanting to see what we have, especially in Hamakua, some of the resources available for that and see where we need to go from there. But I think the first thing is that maybe Rhonda and I should connect in some way after.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to add to that? Okay, and lastly, Bob, do you have anything in regard to protection of coastal resources?
Yeah, I texted Heather to introduce me to the PI for the setback studies. So hopefully I can represent our committee as a representative and be the bridge between them and you and the group. So hopefully we can get the introduction soon. Secondly, you know, there's a new owner or a new leasee for the dairy in Ocala. You know, I'd like to really have them do a presentation to this committee because, you know, the old leasee in Ocala really had some issues with the Kupale Ocala folks. You know, and really the issue for my interest was the CDP looks at the Makai. This group primarily looks at what gets dumped in the river, but never what goes over the cliff. So really that is a source that this is kind of where I'm going to try to play that role because, you know, everything over the cliff is sight unseen. You know, we have a very small beach or coastal areas, but I want to maybe get those new leasees that came out in the Tribune Herald, I think, in a couple of days to have them talk about their operation. And I know that they've made gestures to, I think that lady Nishida and somebody else to the leaders of Kupale Ocala that really has some issues with the original leasee. So maybe we can get them to do a presentation about how they can, you know, their actions or their new operation will be compatible to our plan.
I'm happy to arrange that. I have talked with them most recently because they brought some cattle over from the burned area over at Parker Ranch. They brought 500 head over temporarily so that they had a place to be. But I just so you folks know, I have been on site and the lagoons have been completely filled. Yeah. So I can verify that for you, but I'm happy to arrange it. Their names are Stephanie and Chad Buck, and they are from Honolulu, but connected here. So better than the Whitesides.
Right. I think
happy to make that arrangement.
Okay, because I think Charlene Nishida's greatest concern was the dumping of all that extra sewage over the cliff. And this is where the dilemma comes between responsibility between the state and the county. So hopefully we can get them to address that issue. So thank you.
Okay. All right, our next meeting is scheduled for November 16th. Are there any items that anyone would like to see on the agenda? We can discuss that now. And of course, you can always email them to Kiko if you think of something later. Anything you'd like to see added to the agenda for our next meeting?
Question.
What?
Since that's 2 months from now, are we going to be having meetings more frequently than our otherwise scheduled 3 months?
I believe this is an extra meeting that was scheduled so that we can have the minimum number of meetings required during this calendar year. So I think after that, are we going to back to every 2 months?
We are working on the calendar for 2022, but I think the intention is to keep the quarterly, and what we're hoping is that action will happen in between the meetings. And so we're always open and available to meet with folks, to provide support, make connections. I know that Heather is always open and available to do the same thing. So that's our intention for now. And we come to the meetings for decision points and different informational sharing kind of things. So I don't have a concrete answer for you right now, but the intention is to stick with the quarterly for the time being.
Any other announcements or comments before we adjourn?
Just a quick question to the group. Do you want me to try to see about getting the bucks for the next meeting to talk about the dairy?
Yes.
Yes.
That'd be good.
If they are amenable.
And we'd like, maybe you can invite the Kupale Okala people there, Charlene Nishida and this another person to kind of join us so they can be inclusive. And Gerard, yes, correct.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Hey, excuse me, this is Brad again. Keiko and Alexis, I just found out from a friend that the director just recently, last month in August, issued a memo on farm dwellings, which I found kind of surprising. Something along the lines of if lots before 1976, existing lots before 1976, to get a additional farm dwelling, you just have a notice, and then you can also apply for a third or another farm dwelling. But anyway, it had seemed to have tremendous implications in terms of housing and density and rural sprawl and all of these things for in the ag area. So I was wanting to learn more about it, and I think it's certainly relevant to Hamakua and the rest of the island. But I found it was done in a memo, so I don't know if it's just sort of a administrative discretionary move. But anyway, I don't know if you're aware of that, Heather, but you should be.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. I wasn't. I'll follow up on that.
Yeah, and we can, I'm pretty sure this is all public information. And so I'll get my hands on it and share it out.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
So ordered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you so much, everyone, for all your hard work.
Yes, thank you guys so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good to see you all.
Aloha.